I'm Adrianne.
And Kerri Ann.
This is the owner of All About You Placement Senior Resources, and we have questions that get asked all the time about seniors and where they can live or what are their options, whether it's them or their family. So we're going to kind of go over a few of the questions that we get asked all the time. So let's talk about our veterans. What are options for veterans when it comes to senior living?
Yeah, so I'm very blessed that I have a veteran expert that I work with, and then I've got some other folks that are very well versed in veterans, and I know enough to be dangerous about it because I work with a lot of veterans. But what I will tell you is that in Arizona, we have a large VA care home, and actually we have it in Tucson and in Phoenix. And then the VA also, if we have a veteran that has already registered and is going through the VA medically, then the VA has long-term care facilities, which would be kind of equal to nursing home, that the VA will pay for them to get into. So those two environments. Now, the sticky part with that is that there is a long waiting list. I've had some of my veterans that have been on the waiting list for the VA care home. And that also, that list is also, can move around according to somebody's, like if they have a Purple Heart. If a Purple Heart veteran is trying to get into the home, then he may get in even though he's lower on the list than the others because of his designation. So there's a bunch of different pieces that are involved in that. When I have a family that has a veteran, then there's a lot of things we want to look at. Number one, I want to get them with, again, I know enough to be dangerous, but I always want to steward my clients the best by getting them with the experts. So I get them with the experts so that they can ask the questions and get the lay of the land. The other thing is that we have a benefit called the VA Aid and Attendance Pension. It's one of the very few pensions that's available to spouses of veterans. And so we want to see, can we tap into that? Because that is actual money that goes into their bank account to use towards assisted livings and all that kind of thing. Many of my veterans go that route as opposed to, because again, a lot of my veterans are not, it's not the right environment for them for the VA care home or the nursing home, even though the VA pays for it. They are wanting to be more in a assisted living senior environment. And so that's when we look at the other resources that we can use that the VA could provide for them.
I think that's great. I think a lot of people don't realize that there are multiple options for the VA, and that they can go into an assisted living facility and not have to just be where they say this is veteran paid.
Yes.
So I think that's a great resource for our veterans to make sure that you check that out anytime you have a veteran and you know in the future you're going to be looking at senior housing. Okay, so here's some fun questions for you.
Yes.
What are the differences between senior living and assisted living?
Assisted living is senior living.
Same thing.
Same thing.
They just have two different names.
Yeah, because when I say that I want to expose people to senior living, I'm talking about a variety of things. That could be independent living, assisted living, memory care, whatever that may be. So senior living also incorporates the 55 plus large communities. Now I don't, that isn't what I specialize in, but that is considered senior living. And if somebody is looking at going from their regular neighborhood, regular home into a place like, where we were at Trilogy at Power Ranch, it's senior environment, senior houses, senior living.
Yes, love that. What's the difference between senior living and nursing home?
So nursing home, that's such a tough word because that's old school, and that's I think why people put that in the computer, because nursing home is where their brains are at. So nursing home would be long-term care facility. That is those placements where on one side is a rehab that you would go to like after surgery, and then we've got the long-term care side, which would be considered nursing home. So it's just an option within senior living.
Okay. What is the difference between senior living versus long-term care?
Okay, so long-term care is that nursing home side, is that more medical type of environment as opposed to senior. Senior living encompasses all of them, but long-term care is that.
Okay. What about assisted living versus skilled nursing?
So skilled nursing is long-term care, what I just said. So skilled nursing would be the rehab, with the rehab side and the long-term care side. That long-term care side is considered skilled nursing. So it's just that they have a nurse on staff, not there all the time. And a lot of my assisted livings have nursing that's there. So yeah, the long-term care is nursing home, skilled nursing, that other side of a rehab that is in that building that we would again go to on one side, and the other side is where people live.
Okay, perfect. How about assisted living versus memory care?
Okay, so assisted living, I would say, and this is me, because I have assisted living care homes that folks with memory care can go into and live very successfully. Now, an assisted living community, you may have an assisted living side, and then you have a memory care side. The memory care side is still assisted living, but it is completely geared towards folks with memory issues, and it's secure. So it's all really assisted living. It's just that assisted living is its own entity, and memory care is assisted living that specializes in memory issues.
I love that because they can really, if they had, as they're aging, if they might need to move, they're still in the same facility.
Yeah, so yeah, for my couples, let's say a couple moves in and maybe one unfortunately goes past the ability set of assisted living because maybe they're wandering or whatever that may be, and they need to go to memory care. Well, then they just go to the other side of the community that specializes in memory care, and we've got the couple under one roof, but they're both getting the care that they need in a very unique way.
I love that. What about assisted living versus home care?
Yes, okay. So assisted living is just that. You are living in an environment where you are getting or could in the future get assisted living. It has that license over it, and they have the ability to take care of you all the way through the end of life and directed care licensing. Home care is a caregiver coming to your own home and providing you care assistance within your own home. And that can be done through a caregiving company. They are not a licensed company per se by the state of Arizona, but they're a business, just like any other business, but their business is geared towards having caregivers that can come in and support families in their own home, very similar to assisted living, but it's coming into their own home.
So now another question that we get asked a lot is, can you take your pet with you?
Yes, you can. Now, okay, that yes is not broad. I'm gonna take that back. Okay, so
I was like, wow, that was an energetic yes.
I know. Well, I mean, the fur babies need to go with them if they can. So, every case is unique in its own. The majority of my communities will allow pets. Will allow dog, cat, pet, but some of the communities have a size limit. Others communities, they don't, as long as the dog has got its shots and is manageable by the resident. That's another part that's important to it. Now, assisted living again blends into care homes. So remember that when it comes to a care home, the majority of the care homes will not take a pet. And a big part of it is because if you have a care home and everybody that's living in the care home has a pet, you've got a house full of residents and a house full of animals, and we have to make sure that they can be taken care of. So it depends on the community, it depends on the size of the animal or how many you have, but each person is unique, and at all costs, if I am able to provide the proper options that also allows the fur babies to go with my clients, I want that. So we figure it out.
I love that. And I think too, I know when we'd worked with a client together, she was able to take her cats. And that's unusual because a lot of facilities, normally, dogs are allowed, but
Yes.
that some people have other type of animals that they are allowed to have at a facility.
Yes, and each is unique, and that's why it's good to work with somebody local that has I've placed hundreds of people all over the valley. I know my communities, great relationships. We know the bandwidth of who they're willing to take. But when we do those assessments and we're talking to that person about finances and their history and their medical, their animals are also involved. And the client that we worked with, she's a super loving lady and she had so many cats.
Yeah, she had lots of cats.
So we had to kind of go, okay, not we, you did it because you're amazing.
Two favorite cats.
Pick your two favorites and then Adrianne rehomed the others. And you know what? And at that point, most of my families, or they might have a family member. Sometimes I've had situations where maybe the dog was too large, or maybe the animal wasn't manageable for my client because they still have to take them out and go to the restroom and take care of them, and it just wasn't going to work out. So a family member took the pet in and then does pet visits because that's okay. As long as they have their shots, they can come do visits.
I love that.
So we try and figure it out the best way that we can.
I love that. So now the last question, and you slightly answered it earlier, but what if I'm healthy, my spouse needs the extra help? Can we move together?
Absolutely. So with my couples, we look at them as a couple and then individually. So in the communities that we would look at for assisted living with that directed care license, like I've talked about previously, each individual person that moves into the community has their own individual care plan. That care plan is mandated by the state of Arizona and is directed by the doctor. And so for some of my folks, like if I have a husband and a wife, and let's say the husband may have some challenges that he needs some assistance with, or maybe some memory issues, but the wife is very independent and can do everything on her own, then when we go through the process, her care plan would read simply independent, needs no care. His care plan would be determined by communicating with her, him, doctors, what does he need assistance with is written on that care plan, and then that is what the community provides in care for him. And a big part of that is because a lot of my couples, the well spouse is declining because of taking care of the unwell spouse. So we know inherently with couples that we take care of each other, but we want the heavy lifting to be done by the community and the care team so that the wife continues to stay healthy and the husband, or vice versa, and the husband gets the care that he needs. And also too, because maybe she wants to go on a day activity with her friends and he needs assistance. She needs to be able to go knowing that no matter what, he's getting his meds, he's getting to meals, he's getting all the things that he needs done. So with couples, that's how we work that. The individual care plans are put together, and that changes through time. It's kind of a fluid living thing, but we can get our couples together. The thing that I tell a lot of my families that's super important too, and this is something that can be challenging, is that when my folks, and I see this a lot, when my folks stay in their home by themselves maybe too long. And so we have two folks where one is really, really compromised, whether that be a combination of medical and cognitive or one or the other. Then when I'm looking at environments, I have to look at the environment that fits them most together. But then I have to look at the unwell spouse, and many times I have to gear the environment more towards them, and the well spouse has to kind of just adjust. Because when we look at two people like that, the unwell spouse unfortunately is not going to be able to rise to the skill set of the well spouse. It's the well spouse that has to kind of adjust for the environment to be able to truly take care of their loved one properly.
And I see on that though, does that help the well spouse because they're not having the burden of all of that care?
Yeah.
So even though they're having to adjust, I feel like that has to be a burden that's released from them, of having someone else helping them, someone to helping take the care. Or if, because they are well, maybe they haven't been able to go out in years to have dinner with their kids or go out with their girlfriends because they've been locked in.
Well, caregiver breakdown is a true thing, whether it's a male or a female, and it breaks my heart because I have had couples where my well spouse has passed before the unwell spouse, and it's tragic and awful because they have not attended to their own needs, and they're taking care of their loved one, and many times they get sicker than the one they're taking care of, and that breaks my heart. So that is where I really want to dig in with families to get, even if it's home care, if they're not willing to look at assisted living or ready for that, let's get something in to equal out that distribution of the care that's going on, because it can be very tragic. So yes, it changes life for everybody, and the other thing is that, especially for us ladies, when our hubbies need help, and especially as we get older, the gals are like, well, you're not taking my job from me. I can take care of my husband. I can do everything. And the kids get frustrated because they're like, Mom or Dad, let them help you so you both can do well in your life. So it's a challenge, and we have to walk through these. And that's why I love getting with people way before an emergency happens. And I hate when my families wait until, well, I don't want to talk to Mom or Dad, or I don't want to do this, and they want to live in their home, and we want to honor them. Well, that's all great. But then when something significant happens, everything changes. Then we're doing an emergency placement. All of our options have narrowed down to what's available. It might not be what they want. So I love getting with people and doing that way before, because then we have a plan and we know what they want.
And I think that's a big thing, because a lot of people talk about, well, I don't want to, my parents don't even want to talk to me about their will. No. They don't want to talk to me about death. They don't want to have a discussion. But really, when it comes down to it, that if they're waiting to the last minute, then they might not even get what they were wanting, nor do the kids know, and now they're stressed, or, one's in the hospital, something's going on. That, what are kind of some of those questions that you recommend that children our age talking to our parents, what are some of those questions they should be asking their parents to start that conversation?
Yes, so people need to be talking about this at all ages. So I will say that when my youngest son turned 18, within a week he was at the attorney and he was doing his paperwork. He was doing his power of attorney paperwork, he was doing his what if paperwork, and he was getting his affairs in order, because things happen to people at all ages. So a lot of the folks that I work with are afraid to talk to their parents because they haven't done it themselves.
That is true.
Yes. So I tell people all the time that talking about getting your paperwork in place, making your wishes known, talking about planning for being a senior, all those things are important. And just because you talk about it doesn't mean all of a sudden you're going to be thrown in a nursing home and miserable. Because if that's the case, I'm going to talk about losing 20 pounds because I want to do it right away. Right?
Absolutely.
Right. So for folks, my call to action is all ages, talking about power of attorney paperwork, all of that stuff, and planning, because we plan for kids to go to college. We don't wait until you and I didn't wait until our kids were about ready to walk out and get their diploma to go, oh, I have to plan for their college. Right? Okay. So same thing with seniors and senior living and all these other things. It's things you have to talk about, and it may be uncomfortable, but you have to, because the other end of that is when you don't. I get a senior who has not done any paperwork, not told their kids anything, and now maybe we have a cognitive impairment involved, and what do you do then? Now we have to involve attorneys, it's just a nightmare. So the long answer to that question is, sometimes in life with people you love, you have to talk about hard things, and they may not like it, and it's okay, because they'll still love you, and they may be mad the same way as we irritated the hell out of our parents, but they still loved us, right? And they told us things we needed to hear.
And I think that's what people forget, because we are in such a busy world, and we're so busy all the time. And we are the sandwich generation, that we have we have our parents, we have our kids, and then there's even grandparents,
and grandkids,
and our parents are and so there's so much going on to have those conversations. And that the same, like when my son turned 18, it was power of attorney and all these things, because I want to make sure that if something happened, one, we knew what he wanted, but we also had the control to make sure we were making that decision, not a hospital making that decision. And the same with my mother when she was going into a major surgery. I was like, I need to make sure you have all this paperwork in order. You need to have this done, and you make sure this, that you've updated things, because it's been so long. And, was she thrilled to do that? No, she was focusing on a surgery, but we had a couple weeks to make sure everything was in order, to have, and know where everything was.
Because
and
power of attorney in that paperwork is their words. It's my words. My power of attorney is my words of what I want. I am just telling you, my person, I want you to facilitate my wants and needs. This is what I want and need, and it's your job. If I cannot speak for myself, or if I have had a trauma or a cognitive impairment that has moved so far along that I'm unable to understand the decisions that I'm making, you are facilitating what I want. That's all that it is. And I've had people go, well, if I give the power of attorney, well, here's the other part. I've had kids that have said, well, I have my mom's power of attorney, so I'm going to tell her what to do. And I'm like, oh, no, you're not. Because your mom can talk for herself. Just because you have the paperwork doesn't mean you're the boss of her.
Right.
So there are very major things that would trigger that, to be able to be the person that says, I'm taking my parents' paperwork and now I'm facilitating what they say they want.
Right. And I think that's important conversations to have. As our parents age, we need to know what they want. We need to know their needs. But they also need to know that we need to understand that they have that fear of, the word nursing home, and they don't understand what senior living and assisted living and memory care and all of these options are to them. And having those conversations with our parents now, I really feel like that sets them up, that it's so much calmer for them when the time comes. The whole family's on board and knows what they want, or where they're wanting to move, why they're, selling their house, and this is where they feel comfortable moving to. So just having those conversations are important. So if you have questions about any of this, reach out to this one. She's happy to answer those for you and set up a time to talk with you about making a future plan for you or your family.